Hi, I'm Pushpa Naurim, and today we are going to talk about Phillips curve. Have you ever wondered about the relationship between the prices of goods and services and the job market? Well, today we are going to dive into an interesting concept called the Phillips curve that sheds light on these connections. Just like our everyday experiences, the Phillips curve explores how changes in inflation and unemployment are intertwined. Now, imagine yourself going shopping and noticing that the prices of the item you need are increasing. At the same time, you may also know someone who is struggling to find a job or maybe even experiencing unemployment firsthand. These observations prompt questions about how changes in prices and job availability are related. Meet A.W. Phillips. He was an economist who made a significant contributions to this topic, and he noticed a pattern while studying the UK economy in 1950, and there he found out that when unemployment was high, inflation rate tended to be low, and when unemployment was low, inflation tended to be high. And these observations led to the development of a concept known as Phillips curves. So, Phillips curve is a graphical representation of the relationship between inflation and unemployment, and it suggests that when unemployment is high, inflations tend to be low, and when unemployment is low, inflations tend to be high. So, in other words, it can also be said that there is a trade-off between the two variables in the sense that the rate of inflation and the rate of unemployment. This trade-off can help us understand how changes in the job market can influence the prices we encounter every day. This means that policymakers can decide whether to focus on controlling inflation or reducing unemployment. In the 1950s and 1960s, the Phillips curve showed that there was a trade-off between the two. Policymakers believed that they could use tools like government spending and interest rates to manage the economy and control inflation. For instance, if unemployment was high and the inflation was low, they could take measures to boost spending and stimulate the economy, which would lower unemployment but also lead to higher inflation. Why there is a trade-off between the unemployment and inflation rate in the economy? Say, when there is a more demand for goods and services in the economy, businesses produces more, leading to higher economic output and more people being employed. This also means that unemployment rate decreases. However, as the economy approaches its full capacity, there is also a risk of inflation associated with it. With fewer people unemployed, workers can now ask for higher wages, which can lead to wage inflation. Additionally, businesses may increase their prices because of the high demand. So, in this scenario, we not only observed a decrease in unemployment but also an increase in inflation. Now, look at the diagram on the left hand side where you will see that an increase in aggregate demand from AD1 to AD2, it causes higher real GDP or increase in the level of output from Y1 to Y2. Therefore, with the increase in the level of output from Y1 to Y2, firms employ more workers and therefore unemployment rates fall down. However, as the economy gets closer to the full capacity level, we see an increase in the inflationary pressure. With lower unemployment, workers can demand higher money wages, which causes high wage inflations in a way. Also, firm can put up prices due to rising demand. Therefore, in a situations like this, we not only see a fall in the level of unemployment but also rise in the level of inflationary rate in the economy. Now, let's discuss the monetarist view of Phillips curve. There is a group of economists known as monetarists who have always questioned this trade-off described by the Phillips curve. They argue that in the long run, there is no actual trade-off between inflation and unemployment because the long-run aggregate supply is not responsive to changes in aggregate demand. According to monetarists, if there is an increase in demand for goods and services, workers will demand higher nominal wages. They may believe that their real wages have increased because of the higher wages they received now. However, this increase in demand led to inflations, which also means that the purchasing power of their wages remained the same as before. When workers realize that their real wages have not actually increased, they adjust their expectations for future price increases, as a result of which they no longer provide additional labor and the overall output returns to the original level. Therefore, unemployment remains the same, but inflation rate increases. Now, let us discuss the monetarist view of Phillips curve related to aggregate demand and aggregate supply. You see that in this diagram, aggregate demand, AD1 and short-run aggregate supply curve, they first intersect at point A, determining the level of output at Y1 and the level of inflation rate. You see that it is at P1. But when the aggregate demand shift from AD1 to AD2, it led to the temporary increase in the level of output from Y1 to Y2. But as the people's expectations for inflation increases, the short-run aggregate supply curve, it shifts to the leftward. Okay, you see that it shifted to the leftward directions, resulting in higher inflations, which is determined at P3 level, and output returning to the original level of Y1. This model explains why we observed only a temporary decrease in unemployment. Now you look at this diagram where you see both short-run Phillips curve and long-run Phillips curve, and you see that every point on short-run Phillips curve, it represents a combination of unemployment and inflations that an economy might experience given current expectations about inflation. For example, an economy that is on point A has an unemployment rate of 6% and an inflation rate of 2%. At point B, the unemployment rate has now reduced to 4% and the rate of inflation has now increased to 3%. Okay. Now, if you see that movement along the short-run Phillips curve, such as a movement from B to point A to B, you see the movement along point A to B indicate aggregate demand has changed, and while shift from point B to C indicate a change in the short-run aggregate supply. And if we look at the long-run Phillips curve, you see that it is vertical at the natural rate of unemployment, and in this figure shows that the natural rate of unemployment of the economy is determined at 6%. If we have to talk about the criticism of Phillips curve, you see it has been widely criticized by the monetarists. In the 1970s, evidence emerged suggesting that the trade-off between unemployment and inflation was no longer valid. This period witnessed the occurrence of stagflation. Stagflation is a situation when both rising unemployment and inflation happening simultaneously. And monetarists argued that increasing the money supply only led to a cycle of wage inflation and did not effectively reduce unemployment. They believe that the focus should be on reducing the money supply to achieve low inflations, and any resulting unemployment would be temporary. However, there were others who had a different viewpoint, and they argued that although the Phillips curve still existed and it had shifted to the right, meaning that the trade-off had worsened due to cost-push inflation. This type of inflation occurs when factors like rising wages or increasing production costs pushed up the prices in the economy. In summary, the criticism is that during the 1970s, the Phillips curve broke down as stagflation emerged. Now, you see, in the early 2000s, there was an apparent improvement in the trade-off between inflation and unemployment, and this improvement was attributed to factors such as low global inflation. In the UK especially, unemployment decreased without any corresponding increase in the level of inflation. And many argue that this period of stability signaled the end of traditional boom and bust cycles where there was a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. Now, you see Phillips curve have also shifted to the left based on the past experience. You see, in the late 2008, we witnessed an increase in the unemployment rate and decrease in inflation, and this was a result of the recessions and decline in the oil prices. However, in 2010 to 2011, the UK faced a situation where both unemployment and inflation were higher. This was due to cost-push inflationary pressure, and in other words, factors like rising cost of productions contributed to higher prices, leading to inflation. This period can be characterized as another instance of stagflation, where both unemployment and inflation were elevated simultaneously. And in conclusion, you see, when the economy is operating below its full capacity, a substantial increase in overall demand is likely to result in a decrease in unemployment and higher rate of inflation. Most economists agree that in the short run, there can be a trade-off between unemployment and inflation. However, there is a disagreement regarding whether this trade-off remains valid in the long term also. So that's it. And in this video, we have discussed about Phillips curve and different aspects associated with it. I hope you find this video helpful. Thank you for stopping by.